The time being 12:30, I'm going to call the session back to order. We have with us Director Blodgett from the Judicial Council. Sarah, we've been having a little bit of technology difficulty. Could you just into the microphone say testing, testing, testing to see if we've gotten rid of all the static?
Testing, testing, testing.
Okay. Welcome. Your budget is on page 571. I believe I already asked you if we could post your documents, and Mr. Hoffman was going to take care of that with the lovely Janet Clayman. So I think we're all set to go. So let me turn this over to you. Welcome. Talk to us about your budget.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair and committee members. Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Blodgett, Executive Director of the Judicial Council. As I think all of you know, the Judicial Council's responsibilities have evolved quite a bit over the years, but our core function continues to be oversight of the quality and cost effectiveness of the indigent defense system in New Hampshire. The council also provides for legal and guardian ad litem services in child protection cases, and it enters into public and private partnerships for civil legal aid. Our agency has 3 full-time employees, including myself, and the cost to run our agency is about 1% of our overall budget. And I apologize for just getting the handouts to members just a few moments ago, but if you take a quick look at our handouts, ones that I'll be referring to most frequently are page 3, which is a history of our expenditures and it has highlights to indicate the additional prioritized needs we'll be asking for. And then a pie chart on page 4, which compares our expenditures in fiscal 14 to fiscal 20, so that you can see how our costs have shifted, not dramatically certainly, but costs for child protection cases have increased. And you can see on that pie chart on page 4, our agency is really a small percentage of our overall appropriation. Many of our expenditures are driven by unpredictable and often uncontrollable factors, including the number of child protection and criminal cases brought by the state. All of the programs that we work with, including the Public Defender, CASA, and New Hampshire Legal Assistance, have done an incredible job of providing crucial services during the unprecedented challenges of the pandemic. The state's funding for indigent defense fulfills the constitutional requirement to provide representation for indigent defendants. As you can see on page 4, those costs have gone down slightly from 89% to 85% of our overall budget. In this past fiscal year, the number of new criminal cases has decreased, likely as a result of the pandemic and people being home more often previously. We do expect that as things get back to normal, that those criminal charges will start to go back up to previous levels. Our child protection expenditures have increased more than 50% between 2014 and 2020. Again, we've seen fewer new cases this fiscal year. We believe that's a result of the pandemic, children not being in school, not being in after-school programs, but we are anticipating an increase in those cases, again, when things return back to some sense of normalcy. We're also expecting an increase in the number of child protection cases brought based on some of the factors of the pandemic. Increased isolation, increased economic uncertainty. We have seen over time that these tend to lead to more instances of alleged abuse or neglect of children. Moving to page 571 of our budget, I don't have much to say on 1097, our Judicial Council budget. So if there are no questions on that line, I'll skip right ahead to the next page and to the assigned counsel line, which is right at the bottom, 1091. This line pays for the representation of indigent defendants in criminal cases and accused parents in the child protection cases. Now, over the years, the percentage of this overall expenditure has really increased dramatically for the parent representation. And in fiscal 20, that accounted for 80% of our overall expenditures for that year. The governor's budget maintains level funding at 1.48 million for fiscal 22 and 23. Based on recent trends, we believe that this will be adequate, but I do want to say that this can be a very unpredictable line, and factors like the homicide rate, especially if there are co-defendants, can really have a dramatic increase. Public defender can only represent one defendant in a homicide, and so those costs add up very quickly. I also wanted to let members know that we're also working with DHHS to try to access some federal funding to assist in the parent representation costs. It's been a very lengthy process. Joe Ribson and his team have been incredibly helpful, and we are hopeful that we'll be able to begin drawing down some of that money in the near future. Moving on to 1092. Our guardian ad litem line, and the title doesn't quite encompass everything that happens out of this budget line. We pay for guardianships for incapacitated adults and minors out of this line, but we're also covering a lot of costs for the termination of parental rights cases. So the parent attorneys who are handling that, as well as the private guardians ad litem. And if you take a look at page 3 of our handout, you get a sense of how those costs have increased. Really a significant increase in fiscal 16. We are starting, and I'm sorry, that 1091 is the very top item. We're starting to see those costs level off. But if you go down to the guardian ad litem fund, which is really the next step in the child protection process, you can see that in fiscal 18, we had a significant increase. And that's the child protection cases where there was no reunification possible, and the state has moved forward to permanently terminate the parent rights. Again, we've seen fewer invoices coming into our office this fiscal year. We know that there have been fewer child protection cases brought, and so this number will be going down a bit. But we are asking for an additional prioritized need of $241,950 in each year of the biennium. These costs have remained relatively stable with regard to the probate guardianship cases, but we do expect that as things open up again, that the termination costs may increase as well. Item 1093 is for the contract attorney program. And the contract attorneys are the statutory backup to the public defender program. They handle about 14% of the indigent defense caseload, and all of our contract attorneys are approved by the indigent defense subcommittee. These attorneys are reimbursed on a flat fee basis, and we have seen not a significant decrease, but it was probably 150 to 200 fewer cases coming into contract attorneys this fiscal year compared to last year. The governor's budget has flat funding for the contract attorney line, and we believe that that will be sufficient for our needs in the next biennium. Defender program 1094 is by far the biggest percentage of our budget. The governor has maintained level funding for the public defender program at $23,751,832 for both fiscal years 22 and 23. And we believe that that is sufficient for what we anticipate will be the public defender caseload. They are the backbone of our indigent defense system, handling about 85% of the cases statewide. There is has been a decrease in new cases during the pandemic, but that is being offset by the amount of time that cases are remaining open. And I'll give you an example. On February 19th of 2020, the public defender had a total of 9,522 open cases. On that same date, just a few days ago, the same date this year, they had 11,967 open cases. Now, this has an impact on the staff attorney caseloads. By contract with the Judicial Council, the public defender is supposed to keep attorneys at or below 70 open and active cases. Because so many cases have not resolved, they are now facing caseloads of over 100 cases.
Is this because the courts have basically been closed because of the pandemic?
I believe that it's a combination of factors. Cases are not moving as quickly through the courts because courts were closed. It's also more difficult to get in touch with clients. And I think we're seeing an increase in felony cases over misdemeanor cases, and felony cases tend to take longer to resolve.
Do you think you're seeing an increase in felony cases because of felony first? Where cases used to go to the district court before the superior court?
I believe that that could play very role in what we're seeing. The public defender has statistics showing the percentage of cases that resolved as misdemeanors prior to felonies first in the district courts. And there were some courts that were able to resolve cases very quickly as misdemeanors. I think some of that is the local knowledge that folks talk about, a prosecutor and a judge who know the families in their community and know who is going to be a repeat offender or who can really resolve a case with a misdemeanor resolution and will then get back on track.
Thank you.
Again, while we don't expect to see a sharp increase in criminal cases like we do with the child protection cases, we do expect those numbers to increase. And some of the issues that public defender clients tend to struggle with, mental health diagnoses, substance use issues, those are being exacerbated during the pandemic as folks are isolated and maybe not able to get to services that they would be using prior to COVID. We anticipate an increased need and also an increase in the number of people who qualify for a public defender in the next biennium. Non-counsel services are all of the experts, transcriptionists, translators that the court has approved in a criminal case. The judge has made a determination that those are necessary services for a constitutionally adequate representation of defense. Now, those costs have increased quite a bit over the past several years. And again, I'll just point you to page 3 of our handout. Services other than counsel is the last item. And you can see that we have had a significant increase. We really have exceeded $1.2 million for the last 4 fiscal years. We are seeing fewer invoices right now, again, a result of the pandemic, but we do have an additional prioritized need request for this line. It is $483,129 for fiscal 22 and a little less, $467,966 for fiscal 23. Once the court has made a determination that a service is necessary, the Judicial Council is obligated to pay for that service. Moving along to New Hampshire legal assistance. I think as many of you know, New Hampshire legal assistance provides for civil legal needs around the state. While the public defender represents individuals facing criminal charges, NHLA represents individuals facing civil legal challenges such as unlawful evictions, foreclosures, or domestic abuse. and the council serves as the pass-through for the state's commitment to the civil legal needs of indigent residents. The governor's budget maintains level funding at 1.5 million, due in part to the increase in state funding that we first saw in this biennium. NHLA has been able to maintain at least 3 advocates in all 5 of its offices, including the North Country office in Berlin. New Hampshire Legal Assistance is on the front lines of cases that have been and will continue to be impacted by the pandemic. That includes housing relief, employment security, and protection from domestic violence matters, all areas that the state has prioritized through its COVID relief initiatives. The pandemic has certainly underscored the importance of assisting people with these basic needs. New Hampshire Legal Assistance's response to the pandemic has been nimble and effective. They created the Crisis Response Fellowship, a public-private partnership that maximized their CARES Act funding to assist clients with housing and unemployment issues. They have been conducting remote hearings and client meetings, which is obviously not going to be appropriate for all clients. Some people need face-to-face communication or don't have access to sufficient broadband. But when that is enough, this allows NHLA to assign cases based on the need instead of the advocate availability in a certain geographic area. They've also taken this time to put together some dynamic programming online. They have hosted a number of webinars on eviction processes and have had a very good turnout. Folks from all over the state can tune into the webinar. They can ask general questions. They're not given specific legal advice, but they are able to get educated and get some practical information about the eviction process. And as all of you know, that has been really updated on a regular basis because of some of the changes coming out of DC.
Yes, Representative Emmerich for a question. Followed by Representative Patch. Excuse me, Representative Emmerich.
Are those webinars recorded so you can watch them on demand? Yeah.
I believe that they are. I will double check with Sarah Matson Dustin. She and folks from the Public Defender and CASA, I believe, are participating on the Zoom meeting if there are specific questions for them. But I believe that they're going to start making those available to folks who weren't able to be at the original
Thank you.
event. Thank you.
Representative Patch. Think you're muted.
Unmuted. I muted myself. I'm sorry. Do you handle all types of cases, or there are some civil cases that you do not handle within the Judicial Council?
That's right. So the Judicial Council, so our agency doesn't provide any direct representation. We work with these different programs or pay individual attorneys. So the public defender handles the criminal side of things where somebody is facing charges, has been arrested. Then we pay for certain representation in child protection cases, which are also civil proceedings. New Hampshire Legal Assistance provides for the civil legal needs of the poor people in this state. So that could be domestic violence, eviction or foreclosure. But the public defender program statutorily is prohibited from doing anything other than criminal representation.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Civil legal services are a crucial component of many of the most important challenges faced by our state right now. Keeping people in their homes, making sure they maintain their income, making sure that their utilities stay on. These are essential services to meet the needs of veterans, the needs of people facing mental health crises, and the needs of people with substance use disorders. They're also essential to the state's ongoing management of the pandemic and economic fallout. The Judicial Council also enters into a contract with CASA to provide guardian ad litem services in the child protection cases. And the governor's budget maintains level funding for CASA at $926,550 for each year of the biennium. CASA really is the gold standard for guardian ad litem services. Their volunteer advocates receive extensive training and supervision. They're required
What we're thinking about that?
Excuse me, Representative Ober, this is Mike Hoffman. I think Sarah's microphone just died.
Oh, it looks like it's on.
It's, yeah, it
Sarah, can you
stopped.
pull it closer to you, Sarah, and speak into it? Wait a minute, Mike, let's see.
this.
I'll go see if I can find the fellows to get it working.
Passing it to her. Let's see if that works. Here comes Scott. Hang on. Right now, here. Does this work? Mike?
Yes, I'm here.
Over here.
Yeah, technology is really great when it works. That's what's on it. Bear with us. If you're at home listening, just bear. Mike, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Can you hear Sarah?
I'm having trouble hearing you now, Representative Ober.
Representative Ober, this is Robert from Berlin. I just zoomed in, got back from Littleton.
Congratulations on getting your job.
Okay, thank you. Although I did get stopped for speeding because I wanted to make it here. But no ticket, I'm all set.
Testing.
Mike, can you hear Sarah? She's saying testing.
I can hear you, Representative Ober, but not Sarah.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, Scott.
Hi, Mike. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Sarah. That sounds good.
Okay, Scott, whatever you did magically with those fingers, we promise not to touch anything. Representative Waltz, did you have a question or were you trying to tell us you couldn't hear?
I was just trying to address the silence, so thank you. That's why I took my hand down. When Mike started again, that was adequate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sarah, can you continue, please?
Thank you. So I'm sorry, I was talking about our appropriation for CASA and telling you a bit about the extraordinary work that their advocates are doing. I'll briefly back up to say again that in fiscal 20, CASA spent over 77,000 hours and drove over 500,000 miles on their cases. And if we had to pay for that through the private guardian ad litem program, it would have cost well over $4.5 million. Because of the urgent nature of these cases, the courts have prioritized them throughout the pandemic. The number of new cases coming in has decreased, as we've discussed, but the cases that are pending are still moving through. Everybody is doing what needs to be done to keep these on track. And when it was clear that in-person visits were not possible in all cases, CASA quickly pivoted to require their advocates to have eyes on their kids at least once a month. So that would be or FaceTime, but to ensure that somebody was actually seeing these kids during the pendency of the case. And during the first half of this fiscal year, CASA's actually had more contact with their children because they understand the dangers of the isolation that we've all been under, and they have really gone above and beyond. They estimate that now about 46% of cases are happening in person. Advocates get vaccinated, but that number is fluid, and if there's an outbreak at a certain facility, then the visits may have to go back to be eyes on only for this time. So it has continued to aggressively train and recruit advocates despite the pandemic. They're conducting online information sessions where they're able to reach a large variety and number of folks across the state. They're doing their training for new advocates remotely, and those are some efficiencies that CASA intends to bring forward even after the pandemic is a distant memory for all of us. The last topic I want to talk about is the non-CASA guardians ad litem. And this is another area where we are seeking an additional prioritized need, $150,000 a year for each year of the biennium. The governor's budget maintains level funding for this accounting unit. But as you can see, if you take a look again on page 3 of our handout, that these costs have been in excess of $300,000 for the past few fiscal years. Private guardians ad litem only take a case if a CASA is unavailable. They're paid an hourly reimbursement rate of $60. And our expenditures are down, again, for this accounting unit right now, but we do expect that we will need the additional funding to meet the need going forward. I don't have any other comments right now, but I'm happy to take questions from the committee, and I certainly appreciate everyone's time and patience with, I guess I just have bad technology luck wherever I go, so thank you.
We always appreciate you coming, and bad technology luck isn't really a thing. It just sometimes happens in this room or in any other room. Anybody have a question? Representative Leishman.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hold on while we pass the mic back and forth. Uh-oh, now it's a call between tables.
Nice job. Last year.
I don't off the top of my head, but I had to go back to fiscal several times, and the lines that we had to go back for were services other than counsel, and the private guardians ad litem, and also the probate guardian ad litem line. You can see our actual expenditures in those areas had exceeded what we were originally appropriated. I now think that given the decrease in the assigned counsel costs, that is a line that we will likely not need to go back for in the next biennium if the governor
Peter, just before you ask me, Sarah, in your adjusted authorized for 2021, does that include all the money, additional money you've got at fiscal?
Hi, Representative Ober, it's Mike again. I think we lost Sarah again.
How's that?
In and out.
Pull that mic really close to you and don't look down at anything. Hold the paper up. There you go.
Thank you. In the budget that you're looking at, the adjusted authorized for fiscal 20 does include what we received when we went back for additional funding.
All right. So Representative Leishman, sorry, you had a second question or a third question. More questions.
Mind if I ask you what your salary?
Is $112,000, and I was due for an increase this past summer, but I did not take one because of the economic realities facing the state.
Additional questions by anyone on the committee? Representative Walls?
Thank you. We're still, Sarah's mic and Peter's mic was cutting in and out. So I just want to clarify a couple things because I wasn't hearing it all. So I'm just trying to get the number that would include her additional requests on page 3. Do we have that number, or is the number in our binder include that number? Or how do we know how much to fund her that would include the additional request she has listed on page 3?
She brought page 3 with her when she came today.
Yeah,
She did take it down to Janet, so it could be distributed. The additional total amount, Representative Walls, for fiscal year 2022, and that includes 4 lines, would be $880,000, $834,000.
so
The 23 goes up to 865 plus dollars.
So I added those together and I get 1.746478. And my question is, do we need to take that 1.7 million and add it to the amount in our binder to get an adequate budget for her?
This is, I would say, given what she's said to us, Sarah, if I misphrase what I think you said, speak right up and tell me where I'm wrong. But she's said she's given it her best estimate, knowing the courts have not been meeting, knowing some of the cases have been off, plus the fact that Director Ribson over at HHS has started a new program that hopefully will include her with some funding. Sarah, am I close to understanding what you said overall?
Yes, that's correct. And so the 3 accounting units that I anticipate needing additional appropriation for are the services other than counsel, the non-CASA guardians ad litem, and our GAL fund, which is really probate and termination of parental rights costs.
Representative Walsh, additional questions or further clarification?
No, I'm just trying to get a handle on the dollar amount for this, and that's all. And I just, so if we're going to approve this, I just wanted to have some idea what it is that we need to be adding in addition to what's in the binder.
I don't think, given Director Blodgett's number, we'll be approving or not approving this today. We should get revenue estimates for House Ways and Means on the 25th. And anything that needs to have changes or potentially have changes, anything that uses general fund dollars, we're probably not going to go forward with today.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, even when we go forward, I still would like to have a solid number as to, I mean, is the 1.746 million the correct number, or is it a different number?
It's her best estimate today at the time where she is with the request she has.
Thank
Is that
you.
correct?
That's correct, and I'm sorry, I don't have the total for those 2 years. I can tell you that the total of additional prioritized needs is on page 3 of our handout. For fiscal 22, it's $880,834, and it is a bit less in the next year at $865,644.
Thank you. Those are the numbers I used. I just added them together. So we're on the same, we're talking the same thing.
Thank you.
Any additional questions for the director? Seeing none. Sarah, thank you for coming. Thank you for the thorough presentation. Thank you for bringing handouts to us today. We are not taking a position on your budget today. Obviously, we can't when we don't have Ways and Means revenue estimates. We may at some time need to have you back, but it will be a shorter conversation.
Great. Thank you so much, Madam Chair and committee members. I appreciate your time.
Okay, committee members, we are going to be in recess until 1:30 when we had the New Hampshire retirement system coming. And I believe this is their director's last day of work. I think he's retiring. So we may be the last time we see him. So we will recess until 1:30. Tracy, will you please turn off our sound and
Chairman Ober, this is Representative Tibbetts. Are you there?
Robert, I think they turned everything off.
Okay, because I don't know where we're at. And do you know if we have written testimony for as the
We do. Actually, if you look around 3-something yesterday, Janet sent out the stuff on the retirement system. It's in our email.
Okay, all right.
So,
Which
I
one is that? There's quite a few handouts here.
yeah, I know. Hang on. Let me just go back to yesterday and see if I can figure it out.
I appreciate